Today is August the 20th, 2021. My name is Tanya Finchum, and I'm with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program here at OSU, Oklahoma State University. With me is Jason Pogue, Director of Fiscal Operation and Human Resources Division of the Vice President for Research at OSU. Did we get that right?
Correct.
And you wear multiple hats for the Remember the 10 run, from what I understand. Event co-chair, registration chair, scholarship chair, treasurer, family liaison.
That's all correct.
And all the others, okay. So we'll get into that in just a minute too. This interview is being conducted in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and will be part of the We Will Remember Promise Oral History Collection. By way of context, January 27, 2001, a plane crashed carrying 10 men associated with the men's basketball program here at OSU. And shortly thereafter, the university and community made a promise to the families of those 10 men that they would never be forgotten. And in 2007, hope I've got that date right, the first Remember the 10 run was held. And this will be the 15th year of the event. And it's taking place a week from tomorrow.
Correct.
Normally held in April, but because of COVID, it's been postponed to August. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Before we talk about the promise and the run, let's learn a little bit about you. Start wherever you like.
You bet. I grew up, my entire childhood was in Miami, Oklahoma, although I'm supposed to pronounce it Miami, northeastern part of Oklahoma. I graduated in 1989, and I came directly to OSU. I knew this is where I wanted to go. I came here, I wanted to study accounting, and I arrived on campus 32 years and 3 days ago. I was 17 years old, didn't know a thing. Walked into the Whitehurst Administration Building and got a job in what was then the Graduate College. Enrolled in school full time. I graduated with an accounting degree in 1994, and I took a full-time job in the Vice President for Research Division in 1995, and I got my master's in business administration in 2000.
From OSU?
From OSU, yeah. So lifelong cowboy. I'm married. My wife will be an academic advisor in the Spears School of Business on Monday. She was an elementary school teacher for over 20 years, changed professions. I have 4 children. My son Caden plays baseball at Baker University in Kansas. He is a junior. My oldest daughter Libby is a sophomore here at Oklahoma State University. And my other 2 daughters, Kennedy is a senior in high school and Sydney is a junior in high school.
With plans to go where?
That depends on which day you ask them.
Okay.
Kennedy has great aspirations for some reason to go somewhere in Florida where they happen to have a lot of beaches, but the more likely version is OSU. So we'll see. But I do serve in all those roles for the run. This will be our 15th year. I started the first year I was a course marshal out on the course, just helping direct traffic and keep participants safe. And then the second year, a friend of mine asked me to come help with the registration area. And so I did that. And then the next year, or the year after that, I was kind of put in charge of the registration area. And then my responsibilities have grown over the last several years. So I helped develop our scholarship program. I still am in charge of the registration process. I handle all the financial stuff for the run. We're organized under the OSU Foundation, and I'm also the family liaison. So if the families need something from us, they holler at me. If we need something from them, I'll be the one to reach out to them. So I'm in contact with them quite a bit still. Some family members are easier to get a hold of than others, but they're all wonderful people. So that's a little bit about me.
So what prompted you to volunteer for being a course, what did you call it, course?
A course marshal.
But for your first year,
Yeah.
what prompted you to do that?
I get this question a lot, and I remember the exact moment that it happened for me. I was in Miami when I heard of the plane crash, but of course I was enrolled at OSU, and it was a tragic event. And then I can't remember exactly when, but sometime after that, I read in the campus newspaper that the head coach of our women's soccer team, Karen Hancock, was stepping down to be an assistant so she could spend more time with her daughter, Andrea, who was 3 months old at the time of the crash. And I thought, man, here's a woman who helped create this program, Division I soccer program at OSU. And she's reached the top. She's the head coach. And because of this tragedy and the way she aligned her priorities, she was going to give all that up. And I thought, that's something I got to help with. And that is the one moment that I can tell everybody that's the exact thing that triggered me to jump in and help. And I've met her 100 times, and her beautiful daughter, Andrea, who goes to Northwestern University, by the way, was president of her high school class. The entire family, all the families are just amazing. So really, her selfless act of dedicating herself to her family is the thing that got me motivated to do it.
And that was in 2006 or 7, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I don't know exactly
Somewhere
when it happened, but it would have been, around 2006 or 7, yeah.
You weren't a runner at that point?
Never have been a runner in my entire life.
Okay.
I'm not built for running, so no, I'm not a runner. I always joke with people, they're like, they say, you help with the Remember the 10 run? And I'm like, yeah, I run it. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, no, I don't run it. I run it, it's like organize it. So yeah, it's a joke, but I don't run.
Okay. Well, before we get into that a little bit more, let's back up. You graduated from high school in 1990 then?
1989.
89. Okay, so from Miami
High School, War Dogs.
And had you been to OSU before you decided to come?
I had a stepbrother who had gone to school here, and I'd been up here to visit a time or two, but that's it. I think I'd probably, by the time I showed up here on campus in August of 1989, I think I had probably been here 2 or 3 times, but loved it. And I was salutatorian in my high school class, so I had good grades. I got good scholarships from here, was a member of the President's Leadership Council, and got a President's Distinguished Scholarship. And so I had my school covered, but I came up and I took a part-time job to have some play money, and loved it. Back when I started, the office that I currently work for, the position, Vice President for Research, who I report to, did not exist. And so they had the research division reporting, or that function being handled by the Vice President for Administration and Finance. And in 1991, they created the Vice President for Research position. So I tell everybody I've worked for every VP for research that we've ever had. So I'm kind of the guy with the institutional knowledge in the office, but I refuse to say I'm the old guy in the office, but I've been around a while. So.
Well, and when in high school, when you were enrolling in OSU, what were your goals, plans at that point? I mean, to stay one place for 30-something years?
No, not at all. I knew they had a great accounting program. I knew Stillwater was the place for me. I had friends who had come to OSU that I had played in high school sports with. They moved on to OSU and loved it, and I heard all about it. And so I didn't really know. 17, 18 years old, I don't know if you really know what you're up to, but I knew I wanted to come here and pursue a degree in accounting. And right before I graduated, I applied for jobs, I interviewed, and just decided I was going to stick around and go to graduate school and continue doing my little part-time graduate student work. And then the position that I was supporting opened up, and they asked me to fill that position, and I interviewed for it, and they thought I was the right fit. I've been there ever since.
So where did you live when you first came?
I lived in the old Wilhelm dorms.
Okay.
The big skyscrapers, as we call them. They got torn down several years years ago.
With the bathroom down the hall?
Yep, shared community bathroom, floor full of 80 men or boys, I guess we were. It was an experience, but it was really a great experience. I met one of my good friends to this day is the guy that I got paired up with to be my roommate, but I'd never met before. And so we've remained good friends for all these years. And another kid that lived right across the hall from us, I had never heard of him, met him, whatever. He grew up just a few houses down from my best friend in a small town called Welch, Oklahoma, over by Miami. And so the number of good quality friends that I met on the 7th floor of the Wilhelm dorm was great. It was a great experience. Everybody I talked to, when they're like, I wonder if I should live on campus, and I'm like, yes, you should. Mm-hmm. Even if your parents live in Stillwater, you should live on campus, like my daughter did last year and this year. You miss out on so much if you don't live in the dorm. So it was a great experience.
Had to learn to do your own laundry too.
Yes, yeah.
Did you bring yourself, or did your parents come with you?
I don't really recall, to be honest with you.
Did you have your own car?
I did.
Oh, then you made it all yourself.
Yeah, I don't remember. Too long ago, but.
Did you attend sporting events?
I went to everything. I played basketball and baseball in high school, and so back then, you get an all sports ticket really cheap, and you go to everything, and so I went to everything. Of course, I loved going to the baseball games. That was my thing, but I enjoyed watching all the sports. Went to as many as I could.
Did you meet your wife while you were here, or was she from your high school sweetheart or whatever?
No, actually, it's I'm divorced and remarried. My first wife I met at work. She worked across the hall from me. We got married, had a couple of kids, and then later on in life, went our separate ways. We both have gotten remarried, actually work in the same building still, are still friends. But my current wife, I met her and her then husband and my 2 current stepdaughters in daycare when our oldest kids were 6 or 8 months old. And so my family would bring in my 2 kids, and she and her family would bring in their 2 kids, and we would see each other at daycare. And we weren't really great friends or hang out, but we knew each other. And then several years later, of course, I was involved with what was called the Stillwater Children's Museum, and now it was called the Oklahoma Auditorium, but it recently closed. But I needed someone to help me help in the process of selecting an educational director for the Children's Museum, and I needed some local teachers, and Kate was one of the ones I knew. So I reached out to her, so I got to work with her a little bit during that project. And one of my other volunteer activities, I no longer do it, but it was the most life-changing thing ever, was I was a court-appointed special advocate, CASA. And so they are there to speak up for abused and neglected children in the court system. And so I had a child on a case that which I was assigned, and that child's teacher was Kate. So I went to the school, talked to her a lot about the child, and then several years later, we see each other at Life Church, and she says, it happened to be on my birthday, and she had seen a sign on Exchange Bank west of town because they put happy birthday to their customers on there. Mm-hmm. And she just happened to see it on her way to church, and when I was walking by, she said, happy birthday, Jason Pogue. And I'm like, who's that? And so we got to talking, and we kept talking, and then we got engaged and married. Mm-hmm. So met a long time ago and kind of started a really good friendship at church, in the lobby at church.
So you do more than just do your 8 to 5 job. You do other things for the community, sounds like, too, through the years.
Yeah, not right at the moment, but there was a time there whenever I was doing the Remember the 10 run. I was a CASA volunteer, and I was on the board of the Stillwater Children's Museum. And so it was very busy, and then kids started getting of the age where you needed to be a little more involved, and I dropped off of the Children's Museum board, and I I dropped off the Casa board, but I'm always stuck with the Remember the 10 run and always will.
Why in particular? How much motivation?
Yeah, I think it's just because it's such a significant event in my life, and it is probably because of the relationships that I've built with the family members, and I just kind of always want to be around them. I tell them all the time, like those 10 guys, I didn't know a single one.
Okay,
Not one.
nice. Yeah.
Of course, you knew who Bill Tegans was because you watched him on the news. Some of the other people, you knew who they were, but I'd never met or spoken a word to any one of them. But over the years, getting to know the family members, the parents, brothers, daughters, everyone, I feel like I know a bunch of them. And they're just amazing people. And just somebody that, like, I don't want to give up seeing them, even though we may not see them once or twice a year. It's too important to me.
So it wasn't hard to get buy-in from them to participate or to get approval to do the run, and
Yeah.
you don't think?
Absolutely not. No. They were so excited that the Stillwater and the OSU community were going to come together to honor their family members, that they're so enthusiastic and they're so appreciative of everything all of us do. And I mean, they will load up all of their family they can get their hands on, and they'll make special T-shirts, and they'll come to the run. We do a check presentation every January. We can talk about that later, about the proceeds of the run. They come back, and they could, most of them, obviously it's still painful for all of them, and some of them more so than others. But our goal is to get all the family members back, and most of them have come back at some point or another. But there's still a couple that we're working on that we want to make sure. One of the players that perished in the crash, his brother finally returned to OSU for the first time since the plane crash, or since the memorial in January of 2021, when we finally reached out to him enough, and we pestered him enough, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna come. And he came, and he hung out with his brother, Daniel Lawson, his brother's older roommate from when he was in college. And I got to meet him, and I brought him an old jersey that the athletic department had given me that was Daniel Lawson's jersey. And so it was great. So it's the family, it's the connection to the families that will always keep me doing it.
It takes a little time to be able to do some of those, I'm sure.
I mean, that's the one thing that I've learned, because our primary beneficiary of everything we do is University Counseling Services. And that's one of the things I've learned over the years talking to everyone, is that people grieve so differently and for so many different reasons. And, it may take one person 5 years to clean out their husband's or daughter's or son's closet, and somebody else could, sell their car or something the next week. It just depends, and everybody processes things differently and handles things differently. And we're very happy that we're able to contribute to those kind of healing mechanisms on campus.
Well, while we're there, let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about that, how that came about. Was that one of the initial goals for the steering committee, or whatever that original founding committee wanted to do?
Yeah, that is exactly it. We wanted, our only goal is to hold an event that will honor and remember the 10 men we lost. But we've been very fortunate that, after we collect registration fees, pay all of our expenses, we have money left over. And so trying to figure out what to do with that, put it to good use, and it just seemed so natural that the University Counseling Services provided such great benefits and services to the community during a response to that plane crash that they needed all the help they could get. They needed more resources. So we have provided them $280,000 so far. That's $20,000 per year for 14 years. And they use that to fund graduate students who are actually seeing students and helping them through things, and materials that they're able to take and leave behind for people to use. And they're OSU counseling services, but they have responded to all kinds of different things in our community. We had a tragedy at a junior high school several years ago, where they responded and helped provide resources and counselors. And of course, unfortunately, we've had our own other tragedies with another plane crash and the homecoming tragedy that they've been very instrumental in helping with. So it was a natural fit for us. And I don't really think I was involved in that decision at that point in time, because I wasn't really that involved the first year. But since having talked to everyone, it's like we couldn't come up with a better thing to do with our money than give it away to counseling services.
Well, did they think that it would be going on this long? I mean, doing it 1 year, did they plan to do it?
I believe, as far as I know, they plan to have it every year.
Okay.
The first year we had 700 people. Back when we were at the 10th annual crash, the 10th annual run, I think we topped out just under 2,200 people.
Okay.
So it's grown every year. It's fluctuated the last 4 or 5 years. Normally we're between 1,700 and 2,000 people. But it's still going strong, and we're always when we meet trying to figure out ways to get more people involved in volunteering and participating. And one of our biggest tasks is creating awareness, because the kids that are showing up on campus now weren't born when the crash happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they arrive and they hear people talking about Remember the 10, a lot of them have no idea what we're talking about. The undergraduate admissions group, I think it is, when they give campus tours, they go by the Remember the 10 Memorial in Gallagher Arena. So that's good that OSU is embracing the history that we have. Good history and tragic history, but the educational piece is something that we're really committed to doing, because we want not only the people who are here to remember those folks, but we want the people who weren't born yet to know who they were and the impact they had and what they meant to us as a family. So outreach is kind of a big thing for us as well.
Well, is this year on target with that? Maybe with COVID, I'm thinking maybe the numbers might be a little lower than normal.
It is rough for sure.
A little different.
Last year, we were going to have the race in April, and of course that's when all this started, or right after all of it started. We postponed it to August, and then we postponed it again until October, at which time we said everybody is doing a virtual run. So you run the race and send us your results, and we'll send you the t-shirt and the medal and all the stuff that we've gotten for you. And so we had I think we had about 800 people, or maybe 900, somewhere in that range. And people were generally, still very pleased. That you have a group of people who think we should run it no matter what, and a group of people who say absolutely not. So, we listened, and we met with University Health Services, City of Stillwater, OSU administration, and decided to go all virtual. The one thing that kind of helps us is that we're not the experts and those people are. And if we are going to run our race on the campus and down the City of Stillwater streets, we've got to have their permission to close traffic lanes and have a police presence, and we do all that for the safety of our participants and volunteers. And they said, sorry, can't do that, which we agreed with, we supported it. But it was also kind of nice that we were on the same page. And that leads us into this year, same thing. We were gonna have it the third Saturday of April, which is when it always is. And we made a decision pretty early on to push it back to August. that decision was met with a whole lot of questions. Questions, I guess, is the right answer. You're running in April where it could be rainy and cool, pushing it back to like the middle of summer when it could be 1,000 degrees. And so people, rightly so, were not happy with that. We did move up the starting time by an hour to hopefully catch people when it was a little cooler in the day, but we've added water stations so people can have more fluids. But we finally just got to go ahead, probably within the last 30 days from the city of Stillwater, that they would indeed approve our lane closure requests. And we got the approval, I guess, of the OSU administration to proceed. So we are having the race in 8 days, but the numbers are down significantly, which people are still going to be remembering the 10. So having lower numbers it's a good thing and a bad thing. People aren't coming out to remember, but the good thing is you're not having that many people come out. So we're at about 650 participants right now, and that's fine. We don't expect a huge jump in the last week. We're very happy with where we're at. If nobody else registers, that's going to be fine. But
how many do you have to break even and have enough to give the 20?
We've never ever really looked at that. I just don't know. But when at the end of a race, we have money left over. It may be 32,000 or whatever. We always get 20, so we've got a little bit of a buffer in there. So even last year when our numbers were down, we still had enough in reserve to make the donation. So I don't have any doubt that's going to happen still. But it's probably around 500 would be my guess.
Plus you get sponsors too.
Yeah.
It's not just all from registration money.
Exactly right. We are very heavily supported by the OSU president, the OSU Foundation, and OSU Athletics. They give us cash donations. Of course, OSU Athletics does so much for us in terms of letting us use their facilities and their people, and they are amazing. There's a local grocery store here, Homeland, who has always provided food, fruit, granola bars, water. Stillwater Medical Center donates water. There's a couple of office supply companies that have donated water, Fenton's and BNC. MidFirst Bank is a sponsor. So we have a lot of sponsors, and a lot of companies will put together a team of employees that want to volunteer, and that group may staff a water stop where you have 10 people that are filling water, handing water, picking up trash, getting water to the runners as they go by. So the community has really been outstanding in terms of putting out numbers for us.
Who organizes all of that? You?
No, thankfully.
And the logistics of this is just
It is.
takes a team, I'm sure.
It is. It does. We have Kerry Alexander is the gentleman. He lives in Oklahoma City. He was the one that came up with the idea of having a memorial run. That was a result of him reading Bill Hancock's book called Riding with the Blue Moth, which talks about Bill's journey with grief. And he started on the West Coast and rode his bike across the country to the East Coast. So he dipped his tire in California in the ocean, and then he got to Georgia or somewhere and dipped his tire in the ocean. So, but that book chronicles his journey across the country, and that inspired Kerry to create the run. Currently, my other co-chairs are Sean McCabe. He's a former track and field coach, and he works for the OSU Foundation now. But if there's ever a question we have about the actual race course and how a person runs and what you do and how you time it and do all that, that's a Sean question. He's the one in charge of making sure that the distance is measured and certified, and we have all of our insurance stuff in place. Becky Shipley is insurance agent. she works for an insurance agency here in town. She's kind of our logistics and operational person. So she does so many things, I can't even list them, but it's a little bit of everything. But we're all thankful that we have 2 volunteer coordinators. They're twin sisters, one in Tulsa, one in Oklahoma City. Their names are Katie Blodgett and Christy Miller. And so we get people to sign up to volunteer, and then we take all of their information and we hand it to Christy and Katie, and they figure out we need a course marshal at this intersection, we need people on this water stop, we gotta have people handing out medals, taking care of food, helping with registration. So they take all of our volunteers and assign them to different places. And you know, whether we have 100 runners or 2,000 runners, we still need the same number of volunteers, because you know, you're either going to have 100 people running through every intersection, or you're going to have 2,000. But you still got to have a volunteer at the intersection to control traffic and make sure people are safe. So I would venture a guess that we need about 175 volunteers just to pull off our events. They do a great job.
Does that same bunch volunteer every year?
You
Probably at least a nucleus.
Yeah, definitely. And there are many student organizations that get a bunch of people together to volunteer. It's a little different this year because normally those students get on campus, they get involved in their groups or Greek life or whatever, and they start planning their volunteer activities for the spring, which is when we have our race. But now, students have just barely gotten here. Most organizations haven't gotten together and met. And so we're seeing a decline in a lot of those big groups of kids that are volunteering. But we've also got people out, not really knocking on doors, but trying to recruit people to volunteer. So we have probably 110 or 15 at the moment with a week to go. And we'll get there. There, of other groups that are getting people together. So we'll have plenty. We always have plenty.
Do you think come next year it'll be back in April, if not pending something happen with COVID or whatever?
Yeah, I do.
It works better in April.
Yeah, it really does. When we set up our race, it was the 3rd Saturday in April was specifically chosen because it is right before the Oklahoma City Memorial Marathon and after, I think it's called the Route 66 Marathon in the Tulsa area. And so, not being a runner, I don't understand it, but people who are going to run in the marathons, they do training interval stuff. And so, evidently a 5K or a 10K is a good training tool for the marathon that you're going to have the next week. So we hope it's back in April. We hope the Memorial Marathon in Oklahoma City is back to, I think it's the last weekend in April, last Sunday in April maybe. But that's our plan. So we'll finish this race August 28th, and everybody will kind of do a little cleanup and slowing down and chilling out until probably the 1st of November, and then we'll get going on next year's race.
I wondered how much break you'd get before you
Not
started
much.
the next round.
Not much. Yeah, there's a whole lot of activities that we won't need to pick up until February, but a lot of planning goes into it, starting in probably November.
Well, and at some point it became an official run. I'm not sure what that entails either, but you have to have so many officials to get to do.
Yeah, I don't
I'm not a
understand
runner
that either, but you do get, I think if you as an athlete are registered with USA Track and Field and you enter into certain qualifying events, that you get maybe points, that if you get enough points, you can run in the Boston Marathon, for example. That's the way I understand it, but our event is one of those events that USA Track and Field recognizes.
Okay.
As a point getter, maybe. So it's pretty cool.
And I was reading there's a race director. Do they have to be given the blessing or whatever
Yeah.
for that too?
Well, our race director is Sean McCabe.
They have to-
That's probably, I don't know if that's like I don't know if we are using the title as it's used across the country,
Oh,
but
okay.
but he really is our race director. If there are questions or anything that has to do with the actual race itself, then that's a Sean question.
Thinking they might need to be certified. I don't know, there's so much
He-
this involves,
He
so I don't
very
know.
well could be because he was a track coach here.
Okay,
He
yeah, you
could
probably know.
be, but he's, because of his experience and his connections, you know, he knows who to call to get our course sanctioned and measured. And the sanctioning process is basically, you know, we have to pay a fee based on the number of participants. We have to agree to do certain things. And as a result, the sanctioning body says, yeah, your race qualifies by paying these fees. We're providing you insurance. You know, you can't do these things. You can do these things. I don't know what all those things are, but there are rules and there are sort of promises that the sanctioning body makes to us when they sanction a race. Basically, you know, that we're all going to do things to keep the runners and participants safe and take care of things.
I wondered about insurance, but
Yeah.
you know, liabilities always comes up somewhere,
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, so we are covered with insurance through USA Track and Field, so that's good.
So you're thinking you have the city police department, you have to have them, what about medical?
We had a meeting on the 10th of August, so I guess it was about 10 days ago. And present were the city of Stillwater traffic control, I believe emergency management, Stillwater Police Department, OSU Police Department, and then members of the executive team of the 10 run. So we go over the entire course. We have maps that are printed out, and we talk to them about what we would like to have done. We have to submit paperwork that says we want to close this lane of traffic from here to there for this amount of time. And we go through it, and Stillwater PD will say we'll put an officer and a vehicle at this intersection, and then when the runners get by there, we'll relocate to this other intersection, and OSU PD does the same thing. They have officers that will be coming off of the night shift, and they will hold over for a couple of hours to support our event. Stillwater Traffic Control will go out early in the morning and put up barricades that block off streets, and our facilities management people at OSU, they will go and they will put out safety cones on the course where we're restricting like a lane of traffic. And then as runners go by, the facilities management crew is trailing the last folks, and they're grabbing the cones. And then once we're clear of an area, Stillwater Traffic Control will remove the barricades. So we block down a lot of stuff, but we open it up just as fast as we can. So it's a big cooperative effort, and we roll in OSU parking services because we want to restrict vehicular traffic around the finish line and the last couple of blocks where every runner runs. And so we've got to restrict access through the part of campus that is near the athletic facility. We've got to block off parking lots so people can't cut through the parking lot and get through there. And we've got to be aware of construction on campus because there's projects going on now and there are construction fences up. So we're in discussions with long-range facility planning about anything that may hinder our course. And if they're also with City of Stillwater, they're development people because they may have a project going on a city street that, you know, they're redoing it and they have it shut down. And so we start those discussions early, and we check in often to see if we need to. We can't just say, okay, well, we're just going to divert over a block and then come back and catch back up because that affects your distance. You'll have to have the course remeasured and recertified, and that's an expense that we don't want to have to do. We certainly don't want to do it in the last minute. So a lot of players, a lot of cooperation going on.
And a lot of it volunteer, doing it, you know, overtime.
Yes. Very true.
So over the last 15 years, has the course changed that much?
You know, it has not changed over the last 8 years, I believe.
8 years, okay.
Yeah. We did change the fun run, which is just a 1 mile. A lot of families with small kids and strollers and puppies, and it's just a little leisurely stroll. We used to send them down towards south on Knobloch towards Hideaway, and then they'd make a loop and come back. But now, when they connected Washington Street and Hester right there by the West End Zone,
Yep.
all of our runners now start on Doug Street, and the fun runners will circle down through that little windy drive and come back to the finish line. So other than that, our courses have been the same for 7 or 8 years, I think.
So the fun run, 5K, 10K,
That's it.
anything else? Wheelchairs?
We do actually have wheelchair events. Those will start before the main group of runners start. We allow them some time to get out in front, so they're not dealing with all the congestion at the start of the race when you have 1,500 people taking off and running 2 blocks and turning left. This year, we were contacted by a group called Ainsley's Angels, and it is a group I believe it's headquartered out of Oklahoma City, but they have chapters in Enid, Tulsa, and some other places. But they are a group that I think their main mission is to try and help kids and adults with severe disabilities participate in athletic events like this. So I think we've got maybe 8 of these Ainsley's Angels, and we gave them free registration so they could come participate, but they have to have someone with them pushing them in a wheelchair or some kind of device, piece of equipment. So we'll also start those folks before the main race, and they'll get out there and probably get up kind of on the sidewalk, and it'll take them a little bit longer to navigate the course, but yeah, I mean, we want everybody to come out, whether you can run, walk, crawl, push, whatever. We want people out there.
Do you know who has come the longest distance to participate? Have you any idea where that might be from?
I do not know. I did look at that one year, and we've had some people from New York and some people from Seattle, I believe. But one thing that this will be our 3rd year to have a virtual run. So even pre-COVID, we had an option for people to run it virtually. We just kind of felt like that was the thing to do. We heard from some alumni chapters. I think the one I had most discussion with was out of Colorado. And there was a group in Fairbanks, Alaska. And they wanted the ability to be able to come together in their own local community on the day of the race and participate somehow. So we didn't come up with the notion of the virtual run. We just made sure we could do it. And I think we had a couple hundred the first year we offered it, and it was great. They would use some kind of a map tracker, and they would record their course or send a picture of the results, and we would post it on social media, and then we would mail them. We call it I think we call it a participation medal. That's, it's what you get when you cross the finish line, a medallion, and their T-shirt, and their bib number, and any other kind of little trinkets or gifts that we have available. So it's been really fun.
Do you change the design of those each year?
We do. There's a gentleman by the name of James Causley that he's retired from the T-shirt printing business, and that's not all he did was T-shirts, but he's designed our T-shirt every year, and he's very creative, and he comes up with a different something every year. And Becky and I, it's really Becky's in charge of the T-shirt. She, for some reason or another, she asked my opinion on a couple of occasions, but James has designed our shirt every year. He printed it out of his company until he sold that business and retired, and now Dupree Sports down on the Strip, they do our printing for us. So it kind of started out, we were really wrapped up in the athletic department, and we sort of took advantage of their contacts, and they had people who did their t-shirts, so that's who we used. And they had people who they used to bring in portable toilets, so we used their people. So there's just a lot of things that go on.
You don't think about portable potties, but I guess you'd have to have those with that many people.
And people want them at every turn. But we can't do that. We have, I don't know, we have 8 or 10 that are near the start line, finish line, and that's about all we can do.
So if you had to, have you tried things that didn't work over the years? Anything that, any challenge you tried to solve and it just didn't work?
I'm not
Maybe
recalling
not.
anything, not really. I mean, we've had challenges every year. I mean, a couple of years ago, it rained as much as I've ever seen it rain in Stillwater. And we had people, when the race starts, I'm out on the course, seeing how things are going and if there are problems, trying to help. And I'm in a golf cart, so don't feel bad for me. But I mean, there were times when I was driving through water that almost covered the wheels of the golf cart.
Yeah.
Because some places in Stillwater doesn't have the best drainage, and we couldn't change our course because of that. And so that was one of the most challenging times. But I caught a lot of grief from my fellow volunteers because I had a golf cart that had a windshield wiper on it, and they had a golf cart with no top or windshield or anything. But other than that, I don't really think we've had any big challenges. Our biggest obstacle that we always face is making sure that people follow the right path. And
Signage.
we have had some who have entered the 5K and have been running alongside with someone and not really noticed that if you're running the 5K, you need to turn left. And they kept going straight with their running partner, and then 7 kilometers in, they've realized they should be done by now with their 5K, and that they're running the 10K instead. And the timing system that we have, you have a chip that's attached to your bib, and it picks you up when you run across the starting mat, and then it picks you up when you cross the finish line mat. But out there on the course, the 5 and 10K run together until they get over to Admiral Street, and then they split. And in the road is a split mat, and so they have to run over it, which picks up their timing chip. And so if you have a person that has entered into a 10K and they get to K number 3 or 4 or 3, and they're not feeling well, and they think, okay, I'm going to just run the 5K, so they turn left. Well, the fact that they are signed up for the 10 and they didn't cross the split mat, the system disqualifies them. So they won't show up on the awards for having run maybe one of the fastest 5Ks in their age division. And so our timing guys can pick up on those things as they're watching the results come in. They can see that so-and-so was entered in the 10, but they ran the 5K in 20 minutes, or they ran it in 20 minutes. So they're like, that person, you can't run a 10K in 20 minutes. So they flip them over to the 5K. So they catch a lot of those problems, sort of like on the fly. But we do tend to get some people every year who say, I don't know what happened, I missed the turn, or I was following my buddy or whatever. And so actually this year we have developed a lot more signage to help. We call it the wayfinding signs. So
Got someone with a whistle.
we do have people out there on the course that will bring a megaphone, a bullhorn, a whistle. I mean, some of them are very aggressive in making sure that people know. And we've got a lot of signage around where the course is split this year. That it's going to be in the middle of the road. They almost have to run over it. That says, like, hey, the split's coming up. Pay attention.
We'll see if that even works.
Who knows?
So what's your most memorable race? Do you have one that just
Well,
besides the one in the rain?
yeah, that was a memorable one, not a real good one. You know, probably a couple of cool moments for me. One time I was in a golf cart, of course, and I was out on the course and I saw a friend of mine whose mother was having a hard time walking back to their vehicle. So I pulled over and said, "Would you like a ride? I'll take you wherever you want." So she jumped in the golf cart and I'm kind of coming down the Eskimo Joe's area and I look up and I don't slam on my brakes, but I come to a stop pretty quick and I pull over and I put the golf cart in park and I say, "Oh, I'll be right back." And I really turned it out that I really worried this gal that something was wrong. But I happened to be driving by and I saw Walt Garrison, who used to play for the OSU Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys, standing over there on the corner talking to someone. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, that's Walt Garrison. I'm going over there right now." So I went over there and introduced myself, shook his hand, took a picture with him. And then I came back to the golf cart and took the lady back to her car. So that's probably
Priorities.
one of the coolest, most unusual things that's happened. But, and then we have a guy named Doug Gottlieb, who's a pretty famous OSU alum, former basketball player, who's very passionate about OSU and the Remember the 10. And I got to take him to his vehicle one year and hang out with him for about 5 minutes and chat with him. And he's just a really cool guy, and getting to meet him and talk to him was really cool. So I've got to meet some cool people.
Do you have to chauffeur Pistol Pete around some?
I have once. He's a little hard to carry with the big old head, but one year I had a gator or something that he could get in. But he normally is pretty good about getting himself where he needs to be on his own. So we limit his walking around. So.
Well, you mentioned, I was curious if you had to change anything after the homecoming parade incident, change how, more barriers or anything like that. Do you recall if you changed much of that?
We did address that with the safety folks, and we used to, Hall of Fame is the main thoroughfare through the heart of town. It runs right by the stadium. And they've redone that where it's 2 lanes eastbound and 2 lanes westbound. We used to start on Duck Street and we would go a couple blocks to Hall of Fame and then everybody would turn left and go west. And we used to have just 1 lane of traffic closed. So our runners would be running west in 1 lane of traffic and you would have cars driving east in the other lane of traffic. Of course, they're driving sensibly, whatever. But we did change that after the homecoming tragedy. We closed both lanes from Hall of Fame down to, say, maybe Washington, or it could have been Monroe, I can't remember. So there was no eastbound traffic coming towards the runners. And then in the years since, we've talked to the city and the police departments, and what we do now, we did it last year for the first time. We closed the 2 eastbound lanes of Hall of Fame all the way from Duck Street around to Walnut, which is generally by the Saratine Wellness Center in the Intramural Fields. And so eastbound traffic would have to turn left or right and sort of stay away from the area. Well, this year we were talking just 10 days ago, and we were like, we would sure love to close down that traffic, those 2 lanes of traffic, as far as you'll let us. I mean, we'd go all the way to 6th if you'd let us. And they're like, well, it makes sense to certainly do it to at least Farm Road. And so for the first time, we're closing down Hall of Fame, those 2 eastbound lanes from Duck all the way around to the stoplight at Hall of Fame at Western, or Farm Road and Western. That's the one part of our course that makes everybody the most nervous. And the fact that we've got it closed down to ensure everyone's safety there is really amazing. Now we just have to work on a little stretch from Farm Road to 5th
Okay.
on Western Street, which is where our 10K runners turn back off of Westerns. And it'll be restricted to one lane of traffic right there, but it's progress.
There's not much, I'm thinking from my own experience, there's not much traffic on a Saturday morning in Stillwater from those 2 points. So
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah, it might be good. You know, it's different on a Saturday in August than it is
oh, that's true.
on a Saturday in April,
Yeah, that's
when most of the time the spring football game is happening on the same day. So you do kind of get a little game day traffic. I mean, it's not as much as a normal game day, but so anyway, we'll keep working on them. See if we can get it shut down all the way to 6. That would be ideal, but it's kind of inconvenient for the community too.
So we're a week out. What are you having to do this between today and
Yeah,
next Saturday?
I would say most things we sort of have in place. Like we've got all the logistical stuff put up. You know, people are going to bring. We got a generator coming, portable toilets, Wi-Fi access in the stadium. So we got all those things worked out. What is going on over the next 2 days is that our volunteer coordinators are going to start communicating and making assignments to people. And so they're going to email you and say, you're going to be assigned as a course marshal on the intersection of University and Monroe. And you're going to be here at 6:30 a.m. You're going to do this. You'll be done at 8, whatever. And then the other thing that happens the week before the run is all the people that have registered, we load up all of our stuff and we take it to different points and say, if you've signed up and you want to come get your stuff today, come get it. We'll give it to you, your shirt, your bib, everything. That way you don't have to show up early on race day morning to get it. And so we'll be doing that. We always do that the Saturday before in Stillwater. This year we're partnering up with Iron Mountain Brewery. We're going to do it there. So tomorrow is Saturday, yes. From 1 to 6 we'll be there. And people can come pick up their stuff if they pre-registered, and if they haven't, they can register on the spot and take their stuff with them. Tuesday, we will have a few of us that go over to Tulsa to a running store called Fleet Feet. We'll be over there from 1 to 7-ish. And then on Thursday, we will go to Red Coyote Running and Fitness in Oklahoma City. Same thing, 1 or 2 to about 7. And then on Friday, we will be inside Gallagher Arena, right next to the Remember the 10 Memorial, from 1 to 8. And so those are all opportunities for people to come pick their stuff up to avoid having to come wait in line on race day morning. And then we'll be there race day morning, 6:30 to 8 for people to show up and pick their stuff up. And the first race starts at 8.
So how early do you have to be there?
I'm begging the wonderful folks at athletics to open the gates for me at 5:45.
The gates to
the stadium. Yeah, we'll be inside, underneath the cover of the stadium, kind of in the little alleyway there on the south side. It's gates 1 through 6 is all I can tell you. It's on the south side, on the eastern side, but we set up our tables and spread our stuff out in there, and people can come. We'll have a registration team of probably, normally it's about 18 or 20 people. This year it's going to be about 10 people probably, because our numbers are down, and we want people to kind of spread out a little bit, not be on top of one another, and we hope a lot of people will take advantage of coming to pick their stuff up early. So
your packets already have t-shirt sizes, or you just, they pick that when they get there, or what?
We used to stuff envelopes the 2 weeks before the race. We would all meet up at someone's house and we would put a name on an envelope, and we would grab the right shirt size and the bibs, and it just takes too long. And we just decided not to do that several years ago. So now a person who has already registered will come up and say, hey, my name's Jason Pogue, and we punch their name in the computer, and it pops up and it says that Jason is, a male, date of birth, this day, and the 10K, and the shirt size is whatever. And so we will just have, usually there's a person sitting at the computer doing that, and a teammate right behind them, and and they're looking over the shoulder and they're saying, okay, Jason is a size large and he's running the 10K. So they will turn around and grab a size large shirt and a bib that has a timing chip on it, because our fun run bibs don't have timing chips. Mm-hmm. And so they'll grab a bib shirt and some safety pins, whatever kind of little trinkets we want to give away, and just hand it right to the person. It really takes the person, 10 seconds to show up and turn around and walk away with their stuff. So we don't stuff envelopes anymore, that's right. But we used to have envelopes, we would go around, we would get, Post-it notes from this bank and pens from this bank and coupon, and we're all volunteers, we all have full-time jobs, and we just didn't have time to do that anymore. It just took too long. So now it's pretty streamlined and we get it out there pretty quick.
So what emotions are going on right before the gun goes off?
Yeah,
to start
Pistol Pete does fire his shotgun to start the race.
And how are you feeling?
For me, the moment the shotgun goes off, I'm like, oh yes. Yes, it's almost done. I mean, for the most part, unless there is something happening on the course that I need to help with, for the most part, most of my stuff is done, because I handle the registration team. When the race starts, I'm normally away from there, and they're packing up all the stuff and returning laptops that we borrowed and putting stuff in my truck and every other vehicle you can think of. And so I then kind of get to just really drive around a lot and see how people are doing and make sure everything's going okay. And then come back when I can and watch the awards ceremony when they give trophies to the participants. And then when that's done, it's packing everything up, picking up all the trash, packing up everything back into our big box truck, and then returning our stuff to our storage unit. So when the gun goes off, we're going downhill from there, because it's almost over.
Sigh of relief, one more successfully done.
Yep. This year will be okay. It's 2 months until we start all over again.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's fun.
Well, and you mentioned when we were setting up that you have a dinner for the family the night before. Has that always happened?
As far as I know, it has. I would have to go back and look, to be honest with you. First few years, I wasn't involved in that piece of it, so I don't know. But we do invite all members of all the families back. The student union hosts us for a dinner. They take care of everything. We just got to get the people there. It's a good time for them to come together. Some family members don't see the others, but twice a year. And so it's a good time for them to catch up and check in on each other and see some of the people that were around when all this happened. So the family members may not see Chief Leon Jones from the police department, who was instrumental in all of the recovery, and Steve Buzzard, who was the sports information director at the time of the crash. So they may not see those folks very often, but we bring them all back together. So it's not just the family members, but it's people who were involved at the time of the crash. President Schrum is going to come this year. Presidents Halligan, Hargis have always come by. Coach Boynton comes by. Others. So it's just, we want to get everybody together again so they can see each other. And when they come back together in January, when we do the check presentation, that is normally right around the date of the crash. And so it's more of a somber time. We kind of use this normally in the spring. It's sort of like, we call it like our spring homecoming, and get everybody together. It's happier and they're celebrating and stuff like that. So it's fun.
Have you developed some friendships with some of these folks then?
Yeah, I mean, some of them, I see more often than others. They're all wonderful people, but I'm probably closest to the Hancock family, because Karen here is a coach, and her daughter Andy graduated with my son So I've got to see her grow up, and she's remarkable, and Karen is amazing. And I've long been a women's soccer supporter, so I go to their games, and Will's dad, Bill, and his wife, Nikki, come to almost all the games. I chat with Bill from time to time. He's a great guy. I guess it's Will's aunt works on campus, so I get to see her from time to time. His uncle was a high school baseball umpire. My son played high school baseball, so I just run into that family a lot. But there are others too that I talk to on occasion or see, or Facebook or something. But
Do you think they have any idea how much goes into planning the run?
I think that some of them do.
At least have some idea.
Yeah. Obviously, with Chad Weiberg's role now
Yeah.
as athletic director, we stay in touch with him quite a bit. But I mean, even in years past when he was deputy athletic director, he was still very involved and very supportive. And, we've included him in on some of our correspondence where we have like notes or operating notes from when we met and all the topics we discussed. And, it could be 15 or 18 pages long. It's got pictures of the signage that we're going to break out for the first time this year. And he did email us back the other day, and he's like, wow, that is so much. I cannot thank you all enough for all the hard work. And he's like, some of us think that, you kind of throw a race together in the spring and it's wonderful, but it's so much work. It really is. There's so many pieces, and I'm an organization person, and so I have a Excel spreadsheet with dates and tasks and status. And so, one task would be to contact Stillwater Medical Center about donating water. And so that list for me is like 6 pages long, and everyone has that kind of a list. And so there are all these little steps that you just can't forget. I can't forget to call the athletic department to see about getting Wi-Fi so we can hook our computers up while we're sitting in Boone Pickens Stadium. And you can't forget to have the sound system guy show up, or the physical plant bring out water troughs or trash cans. There's just so many things, so many logistical pieces of it.
Have you ever forgotten some of
I
those
am
pieces?
sure we have. Yeah, I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, we forgot to close parking lots or open parking lots, or forgot to put up a sign here, or we routed people to the wrong gate. I mean, we've probably done it all, but.
Do you have a procedures manual? A notebook that you go back to every year and refer to, or no?
Well,
or is it all up here?
I do. This
You
is
do?
my little task list that I keep. Yeah, it tells me, that.
I'm thinking, is it going to be archived somewhere? Being from the library, I'm thinking
Yeah,
it's archived somewhere.
I don't know. It's archived on my computer right now, but I mean, even little things like this week, this week I was supposed to have gone on campus. Well, I work on campus, but out of my office and onto the sidewalk area, because we have these A-frame signs that the physical plant has put out for us. A big poster for the run. And so every year we take a picture of it and we put it out on social media and say, if you take a picture with this sign and post it on our Facebook page, we'll draw a winner out of that group, and we'll give away 3 or 4 free registrations, or we'll give you a t-shirt or whatever. And so
Have you gotten a few?
I've not done it yet.
Oh.
It's one of the few things on my little checklist that I haven't done yet. So
Okay.
the fact that I remember to put it on the checklist is great, but I haven't done it yet. So it's always updating my checklist and reprinting it so I can highlight and keep track of what I haven't done yet. So I kind of gray everything out that I've done, and something that's really urgent I'll highlight in yellow, and the other stuff is just regular text. And so it's the way my accounting brain works. I have to chunk everything up. So
How much longer do you think you'll do this?
I will do it until they no longer want me to help, or until I can't. I don't know. As long as I'm in Stillwater, I'm going to do it unless I physically cannot, or they kick me out or something. So
And do you have a t-shirt from all 15 runs?
I do not. I'm not a big T-shirt guy with my my body type.
Does anyone in your group
They
keep that
probably
historical part of the record?
do. They probably do, but I'm not aware of it. But Carrie and Becky have been involved since day one.
I'm sure.
So they probably do, but anymore these days, the T-shirts are these very soft, thin material, and I don't like them. Not that I don't like our shirts, but I don't like those kinds of T-shirts. But the T-shirts this year are not that really thin, soft material. I just got them 2 days ago, and they're very sharp. They're very good looking shirts. And I think you're a volunteer, so I think you'll get one so you can see how awesome they are.
I'm going to learn some of the process
Yeah.
on Friday.
Yep, that's right.
On Friday,
Yeah.
wherever
Yeah.
you send me home. I'm looking forward to it,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I'm thinking you probably have participants that's been in all have shown up for all 15 races.
Yeah, it's hard to really put that information together. I mean, somebody could do it with some time, but even getting our records from the first couple of years of the race is a little tricky because of the way the timing systems have changed. And we used to take an Excel file and mail it or email it to the timing company, and they would upload and all that. Now our stuff is just all computerized, and we don't have to send anything to the timing company. It's just all there magically. So getting some of the older records is tough, but I've heard people that have told me, I have done it every single year. Wow.
And I think maybe Karen Hancock might have. I don't
Probably
know.
so.
At least
Yeah.
most of them, majority of it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Sometimes we catch them on game days. They play some games in the spring. And that's happened a few times, but
But do you have a photographer that
we do.
document something?
We do. We had one of Becky's good friends did it for a number of years, and then people from Party Pics, although they have a more formal name of their photography business, but they would come and photograph the event. And for the last, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, there are a couple guys, Brent Niles and Mitch Harrison. They own a photography business, BB&J Designs, I believe it is. No, that's Brent's. Their business together is 2-for-1 photography, so you get 2 photographers for one price, 2 for 1. And they do a great job. They photograph the Land Run 100 big bicycle event. They do real estate photography. They do weddings, senior pictures. They do everything, and they do amazing work. And so we've been lucky to have them come out to photograph everything in the last few years. And they don't charge us a thing. They give us all the pictures. We don't have to charge the public participants for their photos. They get all those pictures for free, so we're very happy to do that.
You can photo finish, but you wouldn't need that so much with the
Yeah.
electronic
Yeah,
finish.
no.
You don't have to worry about
That
that.
little chip will take care of it. Yeah,
And Eddie Sutton used to attend?
he did. He was our honorary chairman for all the years, right up until he passed away. But he would come to the event every year that he could. He would always speak to the participants and the volunteers. God, people just loved him, We've had every Saturday morning, bright and early, before we send people out on the course, we have a volunteer safety meeting where we go over some rules. Don't drive your golf cart through people's yard, or don't stop runners to let a bicyclist go, whatever the safety rules are. And we have a person that speaks to those volunteers every year. Someone that is just there to tell them what the run means to them and why it's important for the people they're talking to volunteer to come out and help and stuff. And so Coach Sutton's done that. Larry Reese, a good high school buddy of mine, we went to high school together. He's done that. This year, we're very excited to have Coach Boynton, basketball coach, do that. And so we've had family members do it. Karen's daughter, Andy, has done it. Chad Weiberg's done it. So it's really cool to hear people's perspective as to why they are so thankful you're out there volunteering and what Remember the 10 Run means to them, or what the experience was like for them on the day of the plane crash. And so it's normally there are normally some tears flowing at the volunteer
I
meeting. So
can imagine, just thinking about it.
yeah, from the participants or the volunteers and the speaker.
Right,
Both, yeah.
right.
I won't tell you how much Chad Weiberg struggled to get through his little talk, but he was very emotional, but rightly so.
Right,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah. So it's fun. It's a great event.
Before I forget to ask, I wanted to ask if you had been to the site in Colorado.
For the first time, about 3 years ago, normally OSU would send someone out there for a little ceremony that takes place at the time of the crash. And they weren't going to be able to send anybody out, like a member of the administration or from the athletics department. And I was just talking to my wife one night. I'm like, I've never been, but I feel so called, like I need to go at some point. And she's like, go. I mean, you can drive out there, one morning and come back the next morning. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going. So I went out there for the first time about 3 years ago, I believe, and met, a ton of people out there. They had a little get together at the crash site. Man, it was just a cool experience. The people were great. They were talking about the night we were there compared to the night when the crash happened. And, it was like this time of night, and the skies kind of looked like this. And before we were done, it started snowing. And they're like, this is exactly what happened on the night of the crash. And it was just crazy. And I was driving my car, and the town of Strasburg, Colorado is not very big. And I was staying in a town called Lyman, which is probably 30 miles away. And the firefighters and the police officers that were there, they're like, now when you get up here to this part of the highway, it's, it will get dangerous. That road is very dangerous when it starts snowing and sleeting and stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm from Oklahoma. We've dealt with snow before, it's okay. But I got into my pickup and set off on my way to Lyman. It took me about 90 minutes or maybe a little longer to travel that 30 miles. And I saw so many cars off of the road everywhere. And it was just so surreal. Like the guy that was on the fire truck that showed up there, he stayed on scene for like 36 straight hours. And before I left, that's what he was saying to me. He's like, this is exactly like 20 years ago or 18 years ago, whatever it was. Beautiful during the day. I got a lot of great pictures, and then it started getting cloudy, and then it snowed, and it just dumped snow. And he's like, it's just like what happened. So it was kind of weird, but I'm glad I went.
It gave you some different type of emotions, I'm sure, came up during that too.
Yeah, it was wild. I just finally got to my hotel room, and I'm just like decompressed. It's like, wow, I can't believe that I was there for that. And like at that spot where I was standing is where the plane went down. And then it started snowing, and I was meeting people who were there, recovering people and stuff. And I'm like, wow, it was just wild. It was very cool.
I haven't been yet, but it's on my list to
Yeah.
do. Probably not in January.
Yeah,
though.
no, don't do that. Maybe June, but yeah, it's really cool. They do a great job of maintaining it, keeping it up. And I took the basketball program gave me a new basketball to put on a pole that is out at the impact site. And I took t-shirts and caps and medallions and took down some old stuff that, there's some old stuff in there, but it's got like some writing or some signatures on it. I didn't mess with that stuff, but like where somebody had just hung a ribbon or a pen or something and it deteriorated, so we swapped those out, put new ones on there and stuff. But the people there in Colorado really take good care of it, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, did you go to the memorial service when they had it in
I did
the
not.
stadium?
No, I didn't.
Arena.
I don't really remember why I did, but I just didn't. I think I probably watched it on the campus channel.
Well, you would have, because you graduated in 90. No, you were still working on your master's around about that time, about 2001, or you just finished
I just
it?
finished, yeah.
So you were still, you weren't working on your thesis then?
No.
That was done.
Yeah, no, I graduated in 2000, so I don't really remember why I didn't go, but
More compelled, but you have come forth and
Yes.
quite a bit since.
yeah. That's very
Well, looking back over those 15, 20 years, I don't know what comes to mind first when you just think of that whole time period.
It's just really their families. I mean, you may see it on Friday if you come help with registration, but after the family dinner, they kind of hang around and chat and visit, but Becky and myself and Carrie will get back over to OOHRP and start helping with registration again. And then we stop registration at 8, which is about the same time the families start to come over. They normally come over and visit the memorial. And that is a very emotional time. We used to have to tell everyone, when Mr. Fleming or Miss Fleming or whomever comes over, we'll let you know this is the family coming in because we want you to stop everything you're doing. We don't need to pack up at that moment. We don't need to do anything. Just hang out, be there if they want to talk to you. All of them will come up and tell you how much they appreciate you. But then we want to stay quiet and let them have their time in the memorial, and that's a really emotional time. For me, over the years being a father of 4, to see Will Hancock's daughter, Andy, who was 3 months old when he died, come over and sit on that bench and talk to her dad's monument, gets me every time. So, even now, but yeah, it's really emotional.
Well, I think it's good that it's there,
Yeah.
or it seems to be good that it's there.
Yeah, it really is. It's a beautiful, beautiful monument. And the one in Colorado is just as beautiful. The guys out there, before we have the little ceremony out there, they sweep it and polish it up and take care of it. It's amazing. OSU has done a great job keeping their promise that they'll never forget.
And that was my next question.
Yeah.
How has OSU done? So
They do amazing. And, I'd like to say it's part of the Remember the 10 run that helps them do that, but I think even if we were not here, they would still do it. They would do something. They would certainly invite the families back every year. They would recognize them in any way they could. And so it's really a good partnership with OSU and our committee. I don't feel like we could be any more supported by OSU athletics than we are.
I think that the library bells chime
They do.
10 times at the time.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. You're amazing to have done it for this long too, and still enjoy doing it.
Yep, I really do. The families, they're amazing people. And, even though I didn't know their family members, I want people to know them. And I want them to know them like I feel that I know them. And so, and I want to be in the lives of the family members. And I want to see them and talk to them. And I want them to see me and talk to me and my family. So
I'm thinking if you hadn't read that one article about
Yeah.
that Karen, you wouldn't, might not be.
Who knows?
Something else may have triggered it, but who knows,
Yeah.
right?
That's very
So
true.
you never know what twist of fate's gonna bring you where, I guess.
And I think I know I've told Bill Hancock that story. I don't know if I've ever told that to Karen or not, but I should someday. But anyway, yeah, that was the whole reason for me. Is, her father-in-law inspired Carrie to come up with the idea of the run, and she inspired me to get involved in the runs. Pretty
People
amazing.
touch people's lives
Yep.
in unusual, unexpected
Yep.
ways, don't
You
they?
never know. You never know what you do or say, how it can impact someone else.
Well, we've covered a lot, but before I close, I want to switch gears just a little bit and have you talk about the COVID lab when you
Oh,
were in the OSU, because that was something that was unusual for across the country for
Yeah.
OSU to be involved in that.
Yeah, well, we, when the pandemic started, the leadership at OSU in Stillwater and OSU Medicine, the Center for Health Sciences in Tulsa, College of Veterinary Medicine, they all got together. I was not involved at that juncture, but at some point in time, they said, like, we've got the people, we got smart people on this campus who have the ability to do the testing. We've got the equipment, we've got the space, the capacity. Let's do it. Let's jump in and help the state in any way we can. And so, I mean, we went almost overnight to thinking like, yeah, let's give this a shot, to ordering equipment and getting it here. And so when I say like our office kind of ramped up the testing, our office was one of like the three-headed spear that did this. My role in it, I'll tell you, which is why it's like kind of ramped it up. But we started the diagnostic testing inside the Oklahoma Animal Disease Diagnostic Lab. They had the skills and the abilities and the equipment. They did this kind of testing for animals, so human testing was a natural fit. So our people went through the certification with the federal government to get the lab certified under the direction of a gentleman named Dr. Call from Center for Health Sciences. So that meant that he pretty much provided oversight for the lab and guaranteed that it operated a certain way and under certain guidelines and stuff. And so we started up running samples and bought equipment, staffed it. We had an emergency response team that created temporary staffing like data entry clerks, transportation unit where volunteers would meet at Boone Pickens Stadium and load up ice chests with ice, and then they would head to all the different ports across the state to pick up samples from county health departments, and then they would bring them back to the diagnostic lab for testing. And that went really well in the diagnostic lab, the animal lab, for a long time. In the fall, over the Labor Day weekend of 2000, we decided to move that lab into the facility we're in now, the Venture One building, because we had some open lab space, and we took a little time to get a little part of the facility renovated. But on the Labor Day weekend, we moved the lab, the testing lab, from main campus out here. And when it was fully operational, I think I heard that the lab had the capability to run 22 or 300 samples every day. And we did that, and I could not even begin to tell you how many samples we ran for the state of Oklahoma, but we became the #1 sample processing facility for the state of Oklahoma. And that continued. Our office and our university assisted with the move of the public health lab from Oklahoma City to Stillwater, out northwest of town. And so that was the public health lab that did COVID testing, of course, but they also did newborn screenings, they did rabies testing, I think. I don't know the extent of what they did, but once that lab got here in Stillwater and got fully functional, we shut down the diagnostic testing lab here, the OSU portion of that, because we were on contract with the State Department of Health to do those tests for them. And so it was kind of a duplication of resources if we continued to run our lab while they were here in town doing the exact same thing. So they didn't want to pay their people and to operate their lab while paying us to do the same, when their brand new, really nice lab had the capacity to run as many tests as you could possibly put out there. So that our lab here was stopped or shut down in, I want to say April of this year, 2021. And all of our personnel who wanted to move out there moved out there. And it was a really huge success. I mean, we had people on very short notice. We sent out a survey across campus and said, hey, we're going to do human diagnostic testing on campus. Do you have any desire to help? And not, we're going to pay you some extra money. Will you come work in our lab? It's like, do you have the desire and the capacity to volunteer to help? And I mean, I don't know how many volunteers we got, but my guess is it's probably somewhere between 100 and 200 grad students, temporary, not temporary, but like clerical type people who would enter stuff in the system. I mean, from chemical engineering faculty members, biosystems and ag engineering, animal science. We had people from all walks of life. Maybe even the library. I can't remember. Yeah. And I mean, it was just remarkable how everything came together. And there's a guy named Ed Kirtley in the College of Engineering. He was sort of the lead person to oversee this. I think we called it the COVID response team or emergency response team. It included people in emergency management, OSU Police Department, other campus safety areas, vet med research, OSU Medicine in Tulsa. So it was a big pile of people and all had different pieces. And my piece was the finance piece. So back in late March, we talked to Joe Weaver and said, we're going to do this lab testing stuff. And he's like, good, send through the piece of paper and we'll get you an account number set up. And he said, get going on the testing. And I know that the Department of Health is going to pay OSU for doing this. Just get going. We'll worry about that later. And so literally almost every expenditure that we've spent to support the diagnostic testing on this campus has run through a single account number that I managed in my office. And so when somebody says, I wonder how much that piece of equipment was sitting right there, well, I can go back and look at my little accounting program and say, yep, $82,000 or whatever. Yeah. And so, you know, for 18 months, or not 18, probably 13 or 14 months, that took up half of my day every day. OSU was, a lot of employees were working from home. Not me, not once. There were our vice president for research, our associate vice president for research, me as the financial director, and another gal named Dr. Amy Brown, who was sort of the operations director. There was a problem in the lab. People called Dr. Brown and she fixed it. If they couldn't find a certain size tip or pipetter or whatever it is, they called her. She found it. She would be over at the lab at 6 a.m. helping unload a semi-trailer if she needed to be. And there were many times in the office where I would come in after I've gone home for the day and I needed to come back to do some more things. I would come to the office and she would be in her office in the very back, and she would have a playpen set up for her child who would be taking a nap or playing. So she would work as as furiously as she could, and then she would stop and play with her kid or feed her kid or whatever, and then the kid would go back to sleep, and then Amy would go right back to work. And so none of it could have happened had she not been involved. And then she left our office to become the chief operating officer of the management group that ran the public health lab, which is a component of the Oklahoma Pandemic Center for Innovation and Excellence,
Okay.
OPCIE, which is a very broad facility or building. And one component of that is the public health lab. So there are going to be other pieces of it. The biorepository is one where when people process these samples, they have to be disposed of as biomedical waste. Well, this biorepository, I think, will allow the state to keep those samples, which will lead to 5 years down the road, if they're trying to see, did this particular variant impact women in their 20s, or, males from Texas in their 50s, or whatever kind of variables you want, they'll be able to go back, and each sample will be, tracked, and it'll say, okay, what do you want? Joe Jones sample from March 19th, 2021. Well, it's here in slot A324, whatever, I don't know. So that is a huge thing. I mean, that's not just for COVID. That can be with flu. It could be with any other kind of infectious disease. So it's really cool. It could be with animal samples, doesn't have to be humans. So that facility is going to be pretty remarkable once they get it all ramped up and figure out what's going in there. They probably know. I just don't know. But
We know more than
yeah.
the rest of us. So.
But it's pretty wild. It's pretty cool. That it's pretty awesome the way OSU responded to the COVID situation.
They stepped up.
Yeah.
In the cowboy way, as they would
That's
say.
right. Yeah,
Right.
they did really good. I mean, it makes you very proud as an alumni and as a current employee about how well they did, and the hundreds of thousands of samples that they processed out of tiny little lab back here with six or eight PCR machines that can run samples. They run like a plate full of them that has like 96 in there at once, but it's pretty wild that OSU turned in to be the leading test processing facility in the state of Oklahoma. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
You've had your finger in lots of things.
Yeah. Now life is back to normal. Not really, other than we're out of the testing business. But
So no regrets from being a 17-year-old and showing up on campus.
that's right. No, I have
No.
no regrets. I love it. I always tell my kids, do you regret anything? I'm like, not one thing. Even all the stupid things I did, it all led me to right here. It's, all my life experiences, good or bad, have made me into the person, the father, the husband, the son I am, so it's just.
And the volunteer that you are.
And the volunteer that I am, yes, that's right.
I think that's a good way to end it then.
Yep.
We sure appreciate all you've done.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys are doing this. It's going to be awesome. It's put together, and I can't wait to see it and hear it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.